All right. Hey, Nate, it's good to see you. Christina, it's good to see you as well.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. And Nate, I don't know if you are in listen only mode or not, but feel free to chime in. I think we're in the dog days of summer with people listening to the recording at their leisure. So it's good to see you guys here too. We're going to dive right in because we're a little bit after the top of the hour. And today, what we are going to talk about is money, money, money. Um, if we didn't need money, I think a lot of us would feel a lot more comfortable about losing our jobs, right? It's like, okay, if I could be independently wealthy and hang out and just do my thing, then we wouldn't really worry. So when we hear about, recession and inflation and, all of these companies that are starting doing layoffs and we're getting these mixed messages of it's a hot market for jobs and people are laying off and what's really going on. I wanted to take a bit of a different spin tonight in really talking about something that keeps all of us up at night. At least I know it does me, right? If you don't have that confidence that you can financially support yourself, your life, your lifestyle and your family and all of these other things, it gets really scary if you're staring down the barrel of that gun. And even if you don't think you're going to be impacted, the possibility of that, it's just way too much stress. And so what I wanted to do is really dive in tonight and talk about some tactics and some things that you can do to set yourself up for success no matter where you are in terms of your financial trajectory. And so I'm going to start with a video that I really liked. And these guys are talking about just different strategies that you can use to really think about how you batten down the hatches in case of recession, layoffs, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to come in and really talk about some very specific strategies in terms of how you can get your financial house in order, no matter how bad it is, or no matter how much of a short time frame you feel you might have between now and your last paycheck. So I do want to preface this by saying I'm not a financial advisor. I don't play one on TV. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV either. But these are just strategies that are shared by experts. These are things that have come in handy for me in the past. And so I'll share all of those with you guys tonight to see which ones of these you might want to pull into your overall financial wellness and your financial strategy. So, if you guys are in listen only mode, feel free to pop any questions that you have in the chat window. But I do want to get started with this video first, and then I'm going to dive into some very specific financial tactics that I want you guys to take advantage of as you move through this process of making sure that you are ready. So let me share my screen. Y'all know how long this usually takes. Let's see if I can get this going. Which one do I want? This one. Yes.
Hey guys, it's Amon
And Christina
from
from
Our
Our
Rich
Rich
Journey.
Journey.
It is time that we talked about the recession and how to prepare for it. Because 2022 and 2023 look like they may be recession years. If you look at what's going on right now in the economy, major corporations are starting to lay people off. Interest rates are rising, which as a result will also slow spending and of course could lead to a recession. The stock market is crashing. All of these things that are going on in the world right now are giving us clues of what may be to come. So in this video, we want to prepare you to weather the recession storm by giving you 5 things that you should be doing right now to prepare for it.
So many people get worried about impending recessions, but we're here to warn you, don't worry. Recessions are a normal part of the cyclical economy in the United States, but they can be bad for people if people are not prepared. They can also be good for you actually in the long run if you are prepared. So that's what we want to focus on in this video. We want to talk about preparing for an impending recession.
So our first tip has to deal with your income streams. People's biggest fears whenever a recession hits is, will they lose their job? And if you only have one source of income because you only have one job, when a recession hits, you are walking on eggshells. And so our first tip is to have multiple streams of income. And you can start working on that by devising side hustles. You see, Christina and I, when we were on our journey towards financial independence, side hustles were what expedited our journey. We always believed in making money outside of our 9-to-5 jobs for many reasons. But one thing in particular is if you lose your main job, your side hustle can keep you afloat.
So when we're talking about side hustles and developing multiple streams of income, we're not saying that you have to start off with a side hustle that makes $5,000 plus a month. We're saying start off small. Make a goal of making $50 a month and then increase it after that. Any additional source of income can be helpful. And we did this, like Aman said, on our FIRE journey. We had an Etsy store where we were selling tooth fairy letters. We also had another side hustle where we were selling wine boxes and where we would create furniture and sell the furniture. And then later we also had a larger side hustle where we were investing in real estate and renting it out via Airbnb and just regular rentals. So again, you can start off slow and expand your side hustles so it becomes a substantial part of your additional income that you're generating each month.
Our next tip is to take a look at your monthly expenses and reduce them wherever you can. You don't want to be in a situation where the recession hits and maybe you lose one of your sources of income and your expenses are still relatively high. We are big proponents of people having a high savings rate. And so we want to remind you that if a recession is on the horizon, this is a moment for you to reflect on how you are spending your current money. And if you see opportunities to reduce those expenses, you should start to take steps right now to do that.
So when we are talking about saving, we're talking about going through your budget line by line and really identifying where you can save. And it can be in small areas and it can also be in those large areas. As you start going through those line items and identifying the savings, those savings in each category can really add up. So our recommendation for you is to start with a savings rate goal.
Now, you've probably heard us talk about savings rate before when we talked about how our savings rate was as high as 70%. Now, we didn't get there overnight. We started off by just saving 1% and trying to get better after that. And all of those 1%, eventually, we got up to saving 70% of our income. So this should be a goal that you are aiming for regardless of whether or not you are preparing for a recession, because a high savings rate will also help you get to financial independence faster in the long run.
Our next tip to you is to research the unemployment benefits that may be available to you should you lose your job. Now, we're saying to do this now because if you're in a situation where you lose your job, that can create probably a lot of stress for you. And then in addition to trying to figure out your unemployment benefits at that time can add to that stress. So we encourage you to be aware of the unemployment benefits that you may have in the future by identifying them now.
And I just love this tip because everyone should know if they lost their job tomorrow, what they would be entitled to as far as unemployment benefits, either from the state or from your job. Whatever the case may be, you should know where you will land if you lose your job.
Our next tip is to take advantage of any type of lessons or courses or certifications that you can get through your current job. Many of you may have jobs that offer these types of things, but you haven't yet taken advantage of them. These things are all really important because they can improve your marketability in the workplace. It can be great for your current job, but it can also be a great aspect when you're going out and you're interviewing for other jobs in the future.
And this was something that Christina and I did when we were working for the federal government. There was always an opportunity to take some sort of training or professional development, and we took full advantage of that. At least every 6 months, we were sharpening our sword so that we were staying relevant at our jobs. Now, not every job has training opportunities. Sometimes you have to go out and do those things on your own, but consider it an investment in yourself. We should all be making these types of investments in ourselves because we are our greatest assets. And our last tip is don't let the fear of a recession hold you back. You see, this can be a very scary time when everyone is talking about a recession. And this type of talk can stop you from doing so many things that could be moving you forward, like investing in the stock market, like investing in real estate, like pursuing other endeavors, like retiring early. All of these things could be held back because you are so focused on the fear of a recession. You see, the thing is, recessions can also offer great opportunities. That's why we talked about making more money through a side hustle, by improving your resume, because the opportunities that may present themselves when the recession hits may be opportunities that you can take advantage of to move you closer to your goals.
So those are our 5 tips for you on how to prepare for a recession. Like we
All right. So what did you guys think of those tips, right? In terms of diversifying your income streams, reducing your expenses and focusing on that high savings rate. I've got some tricks of the trade for you guys on that in terms of how you do that. Making sure you know what unemployment benefits you have available. So you've got a sense of, okay, where am I starting in terms of the money that's coming in, and then beefing up your capabilities and your certifications and really trying to take fear out of the equation, because that just ruins things for all of us. So which one of those, and Nate, if you're in a position where you can, chime in too on the chat window, feel free to do that. But what strategies do you think makes the most sense? And Christina, what are you thinking?
I really like the multiple streams of income. That's something I've been thinking a lot about. Reducing monthly expenses as much as you can. Mm-hmm. I've been paying attention, but there's room for me to cut some things. And taking advantage of lessons and courses, certifications, just kind of to give yourself more.
Yeah, just more to go to battle with if you need to, yeah. Right? So yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we talk about diversifying your income stream, just as as part of just really hedging and mitigating your risks, there's so many unique opportunities that are available that we might not even be thinking about. I think it's a really interesting concept is my partner, Steve, he's a software developer. He owns a software development company. And for fun, like 10, 15 years ago, he built a software program that helped manage his squash league because he likes to play squash. And, they all use it. It was, and as it turns out, there was like several clubs around the world that decided to start to use this. And it was free because software developers are all in it for everybody else to use it. But now we've monetized that in terms of a subscription. And it's not a lot of money, but it's, it's something that's just already out there in the background that all of a sudden you've got some finances that are coming in for that. So think about things like, okay, what are some of the things you do for fun that you could just start to monetize? Because I think we all give a lot of ourselves, and there's an opportunity to be able to collect a little bit of finance, compensation in return for that. So think about what are those areas. I'm not talking about going and get a second, job necessarily, especially for most of the CWC family here, because everybody's already working significant amount of time. But let's see what you can do in terms of fun and how you can parlay that into money. And the other thing you want to really think about is, how long could you go right now without income, right? And if you think about that, so that requires you to really figure out what you can get for possible unemployment, looking at your bare minimum budget and what kind of expenses are you facing, and then do the math. Right? Is it 1 month and you're sleeping on your mom's couch? Is it 6 months? You're like, okay, I got plenty of time, because the industry experts really ask, or recommend that we shoot for somewhere between 4 to 6 months, of having that safety net. And a lot of us don't have that, right? We all like to fill our cups with as much goodies as we can possibly get. And so knowing that you've got more opportunity to put that money away. And the longer you can go, inappropriately, I used to call it the FU fund, right? So whether I decided or my employer decided to say that, then I would at least be covered. But you start to show up differently. And you start to have that feeling that, I'm good. Like whatever happens, I'm good for a bit. So make sure that you really know exactly how long you can go and shoot for 4 to 6 months as that optimal window. Now, if you're like me, I was spending as much money as I could possibly make and then some. And then you're like, okay, I don't have this backup. I can't get a side hustle together in 2.5 seconds. So what do I do? How do I pull this together? And here's some tricks of the trade that I would use. And these are things that I not only did when I thought I was at risk, but these are things that I did right before bonus time. Because when I was on Wall Street, the bonuses that I got every spring or, February, March timeframe were significant. And they would tax it differently. I'd get clobbered in taxes. And so there's 2 things that I would do every, like about a month before bonus hits. But these are also things that you can do right now to give yourself more cash right away. And the first thing, especially if you think it's coming, is to increase your exemptions, right? So I would always do 2, me and my daughter. I'd up it to 13 or whatever the maximum allowable limit was, because you're already halfway through the year. So when you're giving that money back to yourself, the chances of having to, put it in savings, don't spend it. And that way, if you don't end up in a situation where you need that money and, you've got a tax obligation, you've got the money already there that you can give them back. The other thing is, on a temporary basis, at least, stop contributing to your 401k. Right? It's okay to turn that off for a little bit and give yourself, a minute to just, pocket as much cash as you can, with the expectation that you're going to turn it back on when you either know the coast is clear or you've landed into a role that you're feeling more confident in. And so those, depending on your income, so those 2 things alone, when you look at, oh, okay, so, I'm going to take as many exemptions as I'm comfortable with, and I'm going to temporarily stop investing in some of those long-term things, then those are things that you can absolutely do to line your pockets with more cash right now. And that money should absolutely go into savings, right? Not go into your next Amazon order. So you want to make sure that you get that done. So those are some things to think about. The other thing that you may want to do in terms of how to financially back yourself up is to consolidate as much debt as you can while you're employed. And so you've got all of these credit cards, or if you do have all these credit cards or all these other debt obligations, and look at the interest rates and see what you're being charged. But then there's always a million credit cards that are willing to say, if you give us all your balances, we're going to give you 6 months no interest. Do it. Right. And then, you can play that game for a bit in terms of, rolling it from one card to another to maintain that interest free. And that drops your payments significantly. So if you're not in a position where you can pay off debt, which is obviously the best option, then the other thing is to kick the can down the road a bit, right? And so make sure that you're able to do that. Also, really get a sense of, what you can do to negotiate with your employer. Go look at your contract, go look at your hiring agreement, get a sense of, okay, what is our employer doing? So I know for every reduction in force, there's a different package that's offered. And it just depends on the situation. So find out, what are you getting paid for your years of service? How much notice are you going to have before you actually stop getting a paycheck? How are they handling benefits? Because medical benefits are significant. I think that's one of our biggest expenses. When jobs run out, we still need to have insurance for us and our family. And when you go the COBRA route, that can be super, super expensive, right? It's soul crushing how much money medical costs in this country. And so make sure that you know exactly what your options are, and negotiate for things longer if you're in the position to do that, or get ready for those negotiations. A lot of times, if you get that knock and you're like, we need to talk, you're like, great, I'm on the list, I'm on my way out the door. Your brain just completely evaporates into, oh my God, what's next? And you don't think. So if you're thinking about this ahead of time, if you are living your life, your financial life, okay, we're going to batten down the hatches so we're as prepared as I can be, make sure that you've got your negotiation strategy. So maybe it's, I want to get paid, a little bit longer. Maybe it's, I want the opportunity to come back as a consultant. Oftentimes companies let go of people because it's full-time headcount and can bring you back either on a full or a part-time basis as a consultant. Think about how long you can negotiate for them to extend your medical benefits. These are things that on the whole don't necessarily cost a significant amount of money for the company, but can save you a ton of cash in the process. So just get ready. It's like, okay, what do I want? Because whatever they're offering, you can usually eke out a little bit more. And so, but you don't do it when you're in that moment, because when you're in that moment, all of a sudden you can't even see straight, right? It's just, you're just in panic mode and you're kind of like, everything is a little foggy. Yeah. So get that game plan together before you need it in terms of negotiation. The other thing you want to look at, especially if you have a mortgage, is to see if your bank or another institution, another insurance institution offers mortgage insurance. I had mortgage insurance. I didn't even know I had it. And I was in between roles. I had negotiated an entire summer off. So I had left a big role, said, oh, I want to take the whole summer off. And then I moved into my next role. And so I was collecting unemployment. I was officially unemployed. But what happened, because I had mortgage insurance, is that I didn't have to make mortgage payments. They were made for me. And so here I am getting severance, getting a sign-on bonus from the company I was going to, getting unemployment, all of this legit, and I didn't have to pay my mortgage. So not working that summer, I made more money than I did when I was actually working. So find out, because you want to do that soon, especially if you think that's going to be impacted, because it does have to be in place for a certain period of time before you can actually take advantage of that. So that's not something you're going to do the week you hear that, okay, reductions are happening, right? So if you don't know if you have mortgage insurance or if that's something that's available to you through your lender, then go find out, because that is gold, you know, if you can get it. Ultimately, my lender ended up canceling that policy, you know, a few years down the road. But I know there's still some lenders out there that do that. So that's, you know, if you're carrying a mortgage, that's a nice way to say, okay, at least I'm not paying that and it is getting paid by the insurance company. So that's another option. And then also, you know, in terms of medical insurance plans, COBRA is not the only answer.
Right.
And, you know, you may have to go to a catastrophic plan, meaning that, you know, anything, you know, up to $5,000 is out of your pocket, you know, but everything else is covered. Let's face it, how often, you know, unless you've got a serious or persistent medical issue, how often do we really go to the doctor? And so, you know, that may be part of your strategy is, instead of paying upwards to $900 a month for COBRA for you and your family, you know, maybe you do just pay those out-of-pocket expenses and say, okay, you know, if I've got to take, you know, Johnny to the doctor, I'm going to pay the $100 or the $150 and the extra $30 for medication versus paying the $900 and still only having 80% of it covered. You know, so you want to start, and I would do that research now, finding out what type of, you know, high deductible and catastrophic plans are out there. So, you know, if something terrible happens, you're covered, you're not bankrupt, but you're also not bleeding money, you know, paying for rainy day stuff. So that's another place that you can start to save money. The other thing that I want you to do is stop buying shit. Just stop spending money. Like, how many times does Amazon show up on your doorstep every week? And how many times you just like impulse buy when you're at the grocery store, or, you know, when you're in somewhere? I used to hate going to Target, because I'd go to Target for one thing and walk out with $100 worth of stuff. It's like almost impossible not to impulse buy. And so, you know, you really need to tighten up. And, you know, I wouldn't go, you know, completely, okay, we're just, you know, we're ramen noodles every night type thing, especially if you know you're not at risk. But let's look at discretionary income and really see, how much do I need to live? And what's the little extra that actually brings me joy? Maybe it's a fancy meal, you know, where you're going out one night a week, or maybe it's a massage once a month, just to get rid of the stress. But pick your joy, you know, your joyful things, and then get rid of all the other stuff, because it is amazing how much we consume and how much we acquire just through normal life here in America. And so, you know, suspend your Amazon account, turn off your Prime, whatever it takes to just stop spending money on things that you don't need. You know, and you may want to look around the house and be like, oh, interesting, what are some of the things I can sell? Right? I've got, you know, a cool piano, or I've got this, or I've got other things that I don't really use, that I don't really need. And so, you know, those are some other things that you may want to think about in moving into a bit of a more minimalist option in terms of the things that you can do. But I think one of the most important things that we all want to feel is, we all want to feel like we're in control. And we all want to feel like, if the worst happens, what happens? And without having a plan, without having a strategy, without starting to step into, I'm going to live like I've, you know, gotten quietly notified that I'm out of work in 2 months, and really starting to do the due diligence up front, like knowing what your unemployment benefits are, exactly how you file, how long that takes, you know, knowing what the severance packages are that are going on within your company. And if you don't know, because they're not taking action yet, what did they do last time? That's usually a pretty good indication of how things would show up. And, you know, so these are the things that you want to really think about, because when you're stepping into the situation with a clear head and without feeling like your back is against the wall, now you've got control. Like, okay, I know. And let's face it, if you look and the answer at the end of all of this analysis is, I am screwed, then you need a plan B, right? And that plan B needs to be, let's get real. Do I need to start looking for another role in an industry that's more secure? Do I need to have a conversation with my boss to figure out where do I stand? And if you don't know where you stand, take a look at your performance reviews. Take a look at how you're, ranked with your peers. Are you still getting pulled into the cool projects? Are you still part of the cool kids club at the lunch table, and really getting a sense of that? Because a lot of times people know, at least the senior leaders know, who's going to be impacted, and you can start to tell. Right? If your spidey senses are saying that there's problems and things don't feel the way they used to, then you're probably right. And so before you get stuck into that situation, just put things in, you get in the driver's seat, because you get to control these things. And the market is still hot. There is a lot of hiring that's still going on. So in recessions and times of uncertainty, when some companies are failing, other companies are thriving. So there is no need for you to stay on the Titanic if it's sinking. Get off, right? You don't have to be the band that's going down with the ship. So get off and go do something that's fun, because those people are still hiring, and those companies and those industries are still hiring. And that's really where you want to start to take that proactive approach to, even if you're not impacted this time, usually when they start reductions, the first round's not the only round. Right. And typically what you'll see is, when they make these decisions, some of the early warning signs that we talked about in one of our previous episodes was, take a look at budget cuts. Are they freezing headcount? Are they doing these types of things? And if that's starting to happen, then you are probably on your way to a multi-phase reduction in force. And so companies typically don't let everybody go that they need to at one time. There are regulatory requirements in terms of the number of people or percentage of people that you can let go in a particular geographical market. There's all kinds of things that you have to take into consideration. And let's face it, no one wants to let good people go. And so if you do a little bit, see how it goes, see if the market turns, or, if your customers are doubling down, or whatever the case may be in terms of your revenue stream, or if it continues to head down and spiral into a situation where the company needs to continue to let people go. And so typically we would, just back in the day, because I was in financial services, we did this every year. There'd be 3 rounds, right? And so the first round would be, just everybody can cut 10% without missing a beat. And it's true. You look at the organization, you get a little fat, you've got the ability to cut back 10%. So that's usually the first round. And what will happen is it'll either be, last in, first out, or it'll be based on performance, or a combination of both. Then second round is, okay, middle management. So if you're in middle management, pay attention, because it's like, oh, how many people are you managing? And what is your span of control? Because if you've got one person, leading 4 managers that are each leading one person, guess what? You don't need those 4 managers anymore, right? And so you want to really think about, what is your span of control? What do your peers' span of control look like in terms of your leadership? And then from that perspective, how comfortable do you feel, and how confident do you feel? If you're managing a high performing team, and you've got, if you're managing individual contributors, somewhere between 7 to 10, and if you're managing managers, somewhere between 4 and 9, then you've got a really good span of control, right? And if you've got these really long organizational structures where one reports to one, those are dead man walking. They never last. And so if you're in that kind of function, either, find a way to take on more, or be the one that they count on to say, okay, you're going to take it all now. Or if you like the company and you're just in a group that's organized in a weird way, maybe you can find a different group that you can work within, where you're going to be able to have that span of control that you need to contribute to the level that you need to. So that's usually round 2, is that middle management layer. And then round 3 is really when you start cutting into the bone, right? And so this is where it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how valuable you are. It doesn't matter. It's money. Right. And, and I was impacted by that in my last role, actually, before we had just gotten done doing a big reduction of force when I was at AIG, and I owned the list. I knew everybody on it, but I didn't realize I was on it. As it turns out, I was already planning on moving to Belize, so it worked out really well for me. But that whole process, I was expensive. And, you could have let me go and hired 6 more people. So I totally support it. I would have done the same thing, looking at it objectively. And it actually worked out really well for me in the long run anyway. But just realize that, it's easy for us to pretend it's going to be okay. And I want you to have a heavy dose and a good blend of be smart, get your plan together just in case, but don't let it consume your life and let fear just completely swallow you whole, right? Because this can be really, really daunting, especially if you're not in a financially comfortable position. So hopefully some of these strategies, and I'll run through them one more time for you guys just to kind of think about which ones can you do today. But first thing is to get your plan, right? So know how much savings you have, know how much budget you need to live, and then figure out, okay, what's the difference? I need 4 to 6 months, and how do I do that? And understanding and taking into account what do I get for unemployment, what's my severance going to be, how much timing do I have, all that stuff. So get that together, and then get creative, diversify your income, look at your span of control within your work, increase your cash flow now. I mean, we're in, the later half of the year. So you would probably have minimal to no tax impact by just taking away your, adding, your dependents and, getting as much cash as you can. So, to be able to line those pockets right away. And just really focus on getting a good medical alternative should you need it, because that I think is one of the biggest things that we all worry about. And then make sure that you've got that, get rid of that consumption mindset. Right. So Amazon Prime will continue to live every single day if you don't order from them, I promise. So you can take a break from them for a 6-month hiatus and just make sure that you're only getting the things that you absolutely need to have a happy life, not a, restricted life, but something that is a little bit more balanced, with an eye to risk. So, Christina, what do you think in terms of which one of those strategies resonated with you the most?
Really all of it. I think for me, what the biggest takeaway for me is the shift of mindset to seeing this as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the only way to see this as an opportunity is to be prepared so that you're not reacting when the news comes, that you have considered this possibility, that you have taken action. Should this possibility be realized, should it come true for you, even if you're not, you don't have everything set, right? You've been thinking about it, you've been preparing, you've been planning, you kind of have some sense of the numbers. What do I need? What do I have? What's the difference? Mm-hmm. How might I make it up? What will my options be for unemployment, healthcare, whatever. And it does make you feel more powerful, but it really is a shift in mindset where you're not the victim. Mm-hmm. That victimology is so paralyzing.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, and if you are able to actually put this plan in place, should it happen, then it's an opportunity to really take a breath. And I would say in the last year, I've really had an opportunity to start shifting the way I think about these things to really seeing the opportunities. And as I interact with more people, trying to help them to see the opportunity that this represents in their lives, to say, we're so busy running the rat race that we don't stop and breathe. We don't lift our heads up to see what else is happening around us. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true. You fall into this trap that, if I do a good job, if I continue to crush it, like if I just, that's going to be enough, and it's not, right? And so you need to do those things, but that's no guarantee. And so I think those are some of the things that, and the money keeps us all up at night, especially when it looks like the money tree might dry up for a bit. And so from that perspective, I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the community has the tools to take control today, instead of wondering and worrying about what's going to happen, because the monsters under your bed might be desk buddies. But you got to do the work and figure out where you stand and start to put some of these, in place to be able to really make sure that you've got your bases covered when you need them. So,
yeah.
All right. Excellent. Okay. So I know we are lightly attended tonight. So, I don't have any objections to letting people go early if we need to, unless there's any questions that I can answer for the group. So.
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Good. All right, well, this was a short and sweet one tonight, but so stay tuned. So next week, we are going to talk about amping up your digital image and your digital presence without freaking out your boss. And so how do you do that without having everybody in the office thinking, oh, are they licking? Are they going to leave? What's going on? So there is a trick to that, and we are going to share all the secrets with you guys next week on how to do that. So thanks again for listening and tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.